Hello, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the conference thus far. My name is Luca Cordova-Stuart, and I'm the Director of Education here at Blockchain at USC. I'd like to take the time to thank Marshall for their collaboration and my fellow Blockchain at USC e-board for all their committees and their tireless devotion over the last couple of months. With that being said, it is my pleasure and great honor to introduce the next panel on making a better metaverse. Today we have 5 panelists, beginning with our moderator, Thomas Vu. Thomas is a game maker, roadrunner, and tech investor in gaming and Web3. Thomas spent a decade at EA on the Sims and SimCity franchise, and 10 years at Riot Games as the head of creative and franchise development. Thomas is an Emmy-winning producer for the Netflix show Arcane and served as an executive on League of Legends. Our next panelist, Mathieu Nouzareth, is the CEO of the Sandbox US, the leading decentralized metaverse. Mathieu is also co-founder of CCU, a leading cryptocurrency mining company. Mathieu served as CEO of Fresh Planet, the developer of the music trivia mobile game Song Pop, with over a global following of over 150 million players. Our next panelist, Tatsuya Kohrogi, is the Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Global Business for Digital Entertainment Asset. DEA is the operator of PlayMining platform, the #1 Web3 entertainment platform in Japan, with over 2.5 million users. DEA also created the Playverse, where creators and Coke fans create a world together. Our next panelist, TJ Kawamura, is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Everyrealm, one of the largest metaverse real estate companies that invests in and develops both infrastructure and video game technology for the metaverse. TJ is a former advisory partner at Republic Crypto. Last but not least, Tony Tang is an engineer turned Wall Street veteran, former managing director at Citigroup and Deutsche Bank, and top expert in derivatives and ABS. Tony is a VC investor in fintech, big data, and AI. Tony is currently the founder and CEO of Inc. Finance, a Web3 software as a service for finance. Please join me in welcoming this esteemed panel of experts.
Hey everyone, it's my pleasure today to moderate this panel of really amazing companies that are in the Web3 metaverse space. And I want to have a lot of fun with this panel because I love games. I've been a gamer my whole life, and gaming has sort of evolved in so many interesting and fun ways. And Web3 seems like a perfect evolution of the space. As a gamer, we're used to the idea of metaverses. It's funny when Mark Zuckerberg changed his company to Meta, everybody's talking about the metaverse. And as a gamer, I've been playing games that feel like I was in the metaverse for many, many years, from all the way back to The Sims. And then when you look at games like Fortnite, you look at World of Warcraft, these are all metaverses. My daughters, I have 2 daughters who are constantly on Roblox, and that's the metaverse for kids, And what's interesting is, so that definition of what a metaverse is has sort of evolved and changed. And so first off, I want to start to define what the metaverse is. And Matthew Ball explains it as a persistent and interconnected network of 3D virtual worlds that will eventually serve as the gateway to most online experiences. It also underpins much of the physical world. So thoughts on this definition? Do you agree with it? Is it too limiting? Where does it go from here? So I want to talk a little bit first about your experiences working in the metaverse today. And I want to aim this question at Matthew, working on Sandbox, and TJ on Everyrealm.
So for us, so the Sandbox is the largest Web3 metaverse. And I want to say that Web3, not every Web3 is metaverse, and not every metaverse is Web3. So you're right, you have Web2 metaverse for a while. And for us, the metaverse is, it's a persistent world. And usually I think in people's mind, it's also a 3D world where you walk around with an avatar, with a persona representing yourself, and you can do all sorts of things. It can be gaming, it can be socializing, it can be attending a concert, or doing all sorts of things. That's a very basic definition.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, saying, we're seeing your digital identity becoming synonymous with your physical identity. A lot of people care more about their digital lives and their physical lives. And adding on to that, I think that UGC is a big component of the metaverse and empowering creators. We're seeing UGC, grow huge from TikTok and now in Roblox with people creating games that they own and create and making millions of dollars off of. So I think it's natural that it goes into Web3 where these players have true ownership of those assets, can create and really own that, and that's what we're seeing now.
And would you say ownership is really a huge component here? I was a huge Diablo 2 player, and Diablo Remastered came out, and I'm playing that like crazy, and I'm literally on these websites that are like gray markets, right? Buying items, and my wife is probably like, where is all this money going? But is that a huge component? And this has always been in gaming, like if you play Counter-Strike, there's a gray market for that. Play World of Warcraft, there's a gray market for that for items. Now it's going into sort of Web3. Like, what's the sort of, in your mind, the benefits of Web3 in the space?
Yeah, I think with that, just like you would own your physical assets, owning your digital assets, whether it's something aesthetic that you want to look good or something that you can create value off of and produce something. So I think actually owning that, and you can have that be interoperable in different experiences and creating value for you across different, virtual experiences, I think is very valuable. So with us, I think that's a big component of it, because without that, there's different aspects with crypto where you lose your wallet and you lose it forever, but it's true ownership where you can transfer that value to other experiences and create value for yourself.
Yeah. By the way, if you don't know what interoperable means, it just means you can transfer this content between different games.
Yeah. With that though, I think transferring content is sort of difficult. Whether you're building on different game engines from Unreal Engine to Unity is very difficult. But I think when you look at it more, I think it's interoperability of identity, and I'm really excited about identity right now. In Web3, true ownership of your identity and the assets and value you're creating for yourself and achievements and whatnot. So I think we'll see that first. When it comes to interoperability of assets, a little more difficult, just because there's different worlds. They have different game engines and things you have to do there. But I think we'll see identity now, and we're seeing a lot of cool projects in that space.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this concept, just because the idea of if you own a car, right, and in a video game, the car would be contextualized within that game, in that game world, like GTA or something like that. But in this new world, if you own this car, you can use it for anything you want, like in the real world, where you can rent it out or sell it or drive it as an Uber. There's so many different contextualizations around it, and Web3 sort of promises this like really beautiful utopia of allowing you to use the content that you own in the ways you want.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So my next question is, do you feel play-to-earn games model will succeed? We've seen this model emerge really rapidly, and now it's like sort of to evolve and change as we speak. It seems like this space is just changing almost every day. What have we learned from this category thus far to make this a sustainable business model moving forward? And I really want to direct this question to Tatsu and Tony.
All right, I'll start. So play to earn as a concept, to give you context, is you can play games and earn crypto or earn money. And I am a personal believer. I'm doubling down on play to earn. I think it is going to be a successful model. I think past there's been, let's say, like a crash in play to earn, a lot of bad reputation about it. But I think it's more of a management issue, or how do you manage the economics of it? So there's probably not a right way yet, but I believe it's going to be a success. Yeah.
Well, my view on play to earn is that the term is suggesting that playing is a form of a work, or it almost becomes a burden, right? And I think gaming down to it, play should be a form of entertainment. It should be for fun, But I would say if we can figure out a way not to say play to earn, but you can say play and earn, I think that makes a lot more sense. And in terms of the market condition, I think a play to earn also is suggesting that if it is somewhat of a job, then you have to ask yourself, what happens after you earn? Don't you sell it to something? Then I believe quickly the field will become dominated by a bunch of workers who are working the field to make a living out of this, as opposed to say, are we really creating ecosystems or games just for lovers and the people who love this field come to play? I think that is the take. I think a play to earn, in my mind, if it keeps going the way it is, to encourage this kind of, you take this on, you earn, and you sell it to the next person immediately. This, I believe it's arbitrage. Market is very smart, and you don't change this mode, I think something bad is going to happen. I think the mode of a play and earn probably would be more sustainable.
To just hop on it I guess, as well. So in the GameFi space, play and earn is like the new term, but at the same time, it's going to bridge into the metaverse as well, because every people are even working by playing in these games and in these communities. So there's going to be a virtual job, right? You're working in the real world, but what's to say working in the digital space is not real work? We have community managers that are managing projects in these games or in these metaverse worlds already. So I think it's going to be a shift where the play and earn and the cryptocurrency aspect is going to be the gateway between the real world and the virtual world.
Yeah. And, in your experience, and this, anybody can answer this, of course, some of these, obviously, with any sort of new business model that comes out, I remember when free-to-play first came out, there was this sense that people didn't like it very much. I don't know, you guys all played Farmville, and everybody's like, that didn't work. And then over time, like games like Fortnite and League of Legends came out, and people were like, oh my gosh, like this is the model that really works, and then they find a lot of value in it. There's a lot of obviously pushback when a new business model comes out, because people are sort of entrenched in, initially buying $60 box products, and then eventually like free to play, and now there's this play to earn. Are you guys seeing new models? I sort of equate it to one model that I've seen is, even with something like League of Legends, like there is a play to earn component to it, and it's the pro scene, right? Like if you play the game for fun and you become a pro, you're working, but you're doing, you're making a ton of money playing as a pro player. Like, and so there's like this sort of stratification of like people who play for fun and then people who play for work as a different tier. Are you guys seeing new models here? Are you guys seeing different models that are emerging?
So I think with that, the game has to be fun first and foremost. I think maybe in the last bull market, people were thinking short-sighted of, how can I earn quickly? And those models weren't sustainable, where they're very inflationary and there's no revenue coming back into the ecosystem. So I think that has to be thought out, and the game has to be fun first and foremost, and earning secondary. And then to your point about onboarding more users, I think, infrastructure too, where it should be very relatable to your Web 2 experiences. You still get the benefits of Web 3. But it's just very seamless. And right now, it's not quite there yet when you're on-ramping to MetaMask, having to bridge to Polygon, and buying all these assets you have to use. It's still pretty complicated. And so that has to really improve as well, where as a user, I'm just worried about playing a fun game and not worried about losing my seed phrase.
Yeah, it's I think all those things, as it evolves, becomes seamless. I was in the back talking about staking, and just staking requires so many steps that you're like, did I mess up somewhere? Did I, And I think as it becomes seamless, I think more and more people will be onboarded. So moving to the next question, can you talk about differences building metaverse games? Games built on the blockchain versus traditional games. And I want to direct this question at both Matt and Tatsuya.
So at the core, I think you mentioned this. The core of the success is to make a great game, and I think we're not starting from scratch. We're not inventing so many things. We're still trying to build on what has been the benchmark or the playbook in Web 1 or Web 2 of mobile gaming. So I wouldn't say that the core game mechanic is that different from from other type of platforms. We still want to create game that is engaging, that is entertaining people, that is viral. We're very much focusing on those metrics, for example, game, blockchain game. It's for foremost retention, engagement, and eventually monetization comes at the end. That being said, what really changes is the play to earn component adds another level of complexity in the game design. I don't know how many of you have done games, but they may seem simple when you play them, but I can guarantee that behind the scene, very complex. It's a lot of fine tuning. It's a lot of sometimes huge spreadsheets trying to fine tune all the levels, and adding play to earn, adding the financial rewards, the real financial rewards makes it a bit more complex, adds more time for balancing the game creation.
I agree. I would like to rewind a little bit and even zoom out even a little bit more about gaming in a sense, right? We're talking about gaming, about like core gamers, like hardcore AAA gamers, and then there's like the casual and hyper casual. So like when we're talking about gaming, there's already different types of people, different types of games and audiences. And we're a startup, and our strategy has been go lean. So we are focusing on the casual market and creating a lot of different genres to see what's the hit market, right? And then, because we're doing both the tokenomics in the games, so it's a play and earn game. So what's different between a traditional game and a blockchain game is that you're managing a company in a game, but at the same time, you're also managing like a nation and an economy, right? So it's like you're running a nation and you're running a company, and you're balancing, making sure you're creating fun games and managing the community. So there's a lot of elements to it that is very tricky. So for us as a lean startup, we're taking a casual approach and see what hits, and then double down on that. And yeah, that's probably the main difference, I think. It's that economic aspect that comes in.
Yeah, building games is one thing, but building sort of economic models is another thing completely. And it's just
Thomas, may I come here? I think there's a fundamental difference between the Web2 game and Web3 game is that the feedback loop, right? That if you think the game is a developer, the designer, and you're the player, the stakeholder, that feedback loop can very tightly and flexibly built through governance structures that are entirely impossible in a Web2 setting, right? So whether you want to call it a DAO or not, it's not important. The important thing is now you have a group of people with different roles, but somewhat of a common goal. Then here, the collaboration and what the players love and what the designers can design and what the developers can develop and what even the marketers can come and monetize you. All that can be done in a very open and highly efficient system and subsystems through a format. Call it DAO, you want to call it DAO or not, right? So I think that's a very critical difference, meaning the way you can extract economic value and you can extract it the most efficiently. I think that is not available Web2, right? By design, by its very nature of the network is being formed.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I think in Web 2 you saw a lot of the best games come from modding, and with Web 3, I think it's a way to really empower creators in these games to mod and create content and whatnot. So I'm really excited about that, and I think that's something in particular. We're going to see a lot of great content being built. Like in Sandbox, we work a lot with Sandbox and different things, and all the creators are already there creating games and content. I think we're just seeing the beginning of that.
Yeah, that's super cool. So the next question I have is, what are some of your favorite Metaverse games you played? Are there specific IPs that are on your radar that you're most excited about to play in the future?
I guess other than Sandbox, we are working closely with a game called Shrapnel, which is on Avalanche, first-person shooter extraction game. So every single time you're extracting, you're putting your assets and gambling those assets and can lose those assets. So that really fascinates me. Everywhere is another one as well, which is created by Leslie Benzies from Rockstar Games. So you're seeing a lot of traditional Game 2 developers come into this space, and I'm really excited about that as well. Limit Break, another one. I know the founder has been all over Twitter. You should probably follow him. He has a lot to say. But a a lot of interesting things happening right now.
Yes, for me, I think I look at what creators do inside the Sandbox. So we're coming from a gaming background, but over time we're evolving beyond gaming, and now we call them not game but experiences. And an experience can be a game, but we go beyond this. We do concerts, retail, we do social, different kinds of experiences. So, for example, if you play what I liked in Sandbox right now, you go. I mean, closed the alpha season like a few days ago. We have played an experience / a game from Gucci, for example, or Warner Music. We have Snoop Dogg coming. We have a lot of branded IPs that are really inside the Sandbox.
Yeah, I'm excited for a lot of the upcoming Web2 game companies building into the blockchain game as well. So like currently right now, like the way I play games is very like spot time, like 15 minutes when I'm like, I have some downtime, I'll look at my phone and play. So it's a little different. I play more on the casual side, and the games that we play, I play a lot of our games. So that's kind of like promoting myself. But yeah, it's a lot of the PlayMining games is something I'm into right now.
Yeah, I sort of think about like gaming as like you have your main game, right? And oftentimes they're like these big games that you sink tons of hours in, whether it's like a World of Warcraft or League of Legends or Counter-Strike, and then there's the side games where, I'll play like Hearthstone or something else that's sort of my side game, which is really cool. And sort of the idea of Web 2 games starting to like bridge into Web 3, it's like, I think like where you orient yourself and where you start off is actually pretty interesting to see, because if you're oriented into Web 2 and then you make it seamless into Web 3 where people don't have that sort of barrier, like that psychological barrier, I think it starts to transition people in much easier, right? Because I think if you think about like the value proposition to the audience, it seems, of course I want to own the items that I buy, of course I want to have, the ability to take these items anywhere I want, resell it, do whatever I want with it. I think logically it makes sense, but it needs the experience and the value proposition to be really clear. And right now it's sort of muddy, because I think oftentimes early on in Web3, it started off as a technology that's fighting a reason. And now I think in the next sort of phase with the games that you guys are making, it's going to be like, the reason is the experience is going to be so fun and awesome. And then they'll have this underlying that gives you more value to the things that you put money in.
Yeah, but I think there is still a lot of pushback from Web2 companies. We mentioned that, from players as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure the audience, I'm sure you have a lot of people who are very opposed to NFT gaming or Web3 gaming. And usually people tell us, a few months ago it was about the environmental impact, which is almost gone now that Ethereum moved to a staking system. And the main thing people tell us is that, it's a cash grab for companies. Basically, and let us play the game, and you guys are trying to make too much money, and pains me because at Sandbox, for example, our commission rate is only 5%, so we give back 95% to the creators, and if you compare that to other Web2 companies, it's really, really way, I mean, it's way lower. So I hope that more Web2 companies and more players will slowly adopt Web3 gaming. I think it's a bit hard right now, but I think it's gonna come.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that too. Like we talked about like Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 gaming. Like just to give more like historical background. Like Web 1, I like to think of it as the era where you're playing games where there's no internet, right? So you're just playing games on a console or at the arcade. Web 2, the internet comes in, so now you have this social feature where you're battling with your friends and ranking and trying to be better than them. So you have that desire to be the best. And then Web 3 gaming that like we've been talking about, as the key word is the ownership aspect, where now you can own your characters that you've leveled up and you spent money on or you spent a lot of hours on. And I think for what we're seeing on PlayMining is that these gamers that are hardcore on our platform are becoming like world-class gamers, have their NFT characters that are super powerful, and then they'll rent it out to other people. So now this NFT, that the character that they've powered up, has become an enabler to another person in another country, and they're directly connected on Twitter, and they'll say, thank you for letting me rent your NFT, and now I could play and battle in these hard quests. So we're seeing ownership and the ability to be able to lend or rent or purchase and own it enable investors, players, like multiple people, like everyone's involved in this. So I think that's a really big game changer. No pun intended.
Very cool. All right, so last question. What recommendations do you have for students pursuing Metaverse projects? Are there specific resources, tools you recommend them learning? Where can they find these resources?
For the Sandbox, it's super simple. Sandbox.game, we have, everything is there. And actually, it's way easier than people think. You can experiment. It's not that expensive. It's easy. I mean, our approach is our creators tools are no code, so you can't even program in it. Everything is drag and drop, pull down menus, check boxes. So just experiment. It's easy.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's so many ways to get involved, whether you're a game designer on the design side, you're an economist, you just want to play the game. There's a lot of ways to get involved in this ecosystem. So whatever interests you, I would dive in. I know a lot of USC students have been very entrepreneurial and creating a lot of projects already in the Metaverse space, have reached out to me. So I love to see that. Just keep on, trying different things and building. And the space is still very early, and a lot of these games are building in public, and there's many ways to get involved with those games as they develop at the same time.
My theory is that this is, as I said, it's a field of entertainment and it's a field of social, it's a field of fun, right? And I would encourage anyone who thinks about Metaverse as a career is not to overthink the blockchain part of it. If you can come up with a very collaborative way of expressing your game and your content, start from there, and you almost always can find some kind of a blockchain tech to back you up. Don't overthink the blockchain part of it. Focus on the experience. Focus on what Metaverse really is, that digital life you would like to have. And you think backwards, you will find the blockchain is not the perfect solution, but it's almost there to solve all your problems.
Yeah, I think three resources. One is just Twitter. Twitter was like my kind of entryway into getting all that information because everyone's out there. Everyone is publishing a lot of content and information. You have to kind of filter it out, but just follow the key people. I think there's a lot of information people are putting out there. Two, just going out and trying, right? Purchasing your first crypto, creating your first wallet. What is that process like? And then trying out the game space, or it doesn't even have to be games. I think the digital asset ownership can be anything, right, in any field. So what I would do if I were an entrepreneur here or students here, how can I use digital asset ownership in what I love doing or what I'm passionate about? It doesn't just have to be games. So I think that would be a place to start.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me to see all the progress made on this front because back in the day when we were making a game, if we wanted to make an online game, it was a tremendous amount of effort. I mean, literally finding a great network engineer would take, it would take years to find. And now every game is online, and I think blockchain is very similar in this perspective where, there's so many new tools now, and I think over time it's just going to be seamless. If you wanted to make something on the blockchain, it just will be. It's just like an afterthought, not a huge burden to overcome. And so, I'm really excited about the future of it because I think innovation will come from this. And I think actually what I've seen is that the studios that are on the fringes, and we talked about this a little bit in the back, where it's really hard to make a great game and a blockchain game, on the blockchain, because you sort of have only so much resources to focus one or the other, right? But over time, as production becomes more commoditized and putting on the blockchain becomes commoditized, that becomes easier and the cost is lowered, right? And I think for students, it's a really exciting time because you guys get to decide on how you guys can make the games that you want to make, and as the general audience becomes more acclimated, and I saw this again with free-to-play, DRM, all these different things that sort of emerge, become acceptable. I think blockchain, GameFi, all these things will over time become the same, in the same way. So, but yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts today. I don't know if that's how do we wrap this up, but maybe the very last question is, what are you playing currently? What's the game? And it could be on the blockchain that it could be a blockchain game, it could be like a Web 2 game. But what are you guys playing currently?
Okay, I feel bad, but I'll go with the Web 2 game. I took a lot of hours in Splatoon, Splatoon 3. It's quite addicting. Recently, that was probably the game that got me hooked, most recent.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I've been traveling a lot, so another Switch game. I'm playing a lot of Zelda recently.
Right. I mean, what we're building is that we see ourselves as an enabler, right? So in the digital life, it's like a digital society. If there is such a one, it is a land of collaboration and interaction. So organized behavior must take place. So we build tools to organize, to create a structure, and to help these ecosystems, this digital ecosystem, to extract the value, manage their assets in a transparent, it's societal way. So that's what InFinance does.
Yeah, and me, I mean, we just finished season 3 of Sandbox. I'm sorry, I played my own company's game, but I spent most of my time playing this. I mean, it was also work, testing, and giving feedback to the team.
It's always good to play your own games, for sure. It's like, for me, I just got my Steam Deck, and so I've been playing all the single-player games. Like if I'm on a PC, I'm usually playing a multiplayer game, and so Control is the game that I'm playing right now, and it's really fantastic. But I think we can wrap it up. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.